Good afternoon. Well, I should say good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for our tips and tricks of using Canvas and teaching online here at Houston Tillotson University. So this is a workshop that we are facilitating to support faculty in a peer-to-peer context to be able to support online instruction for spring term. We are very, very honored, very proud to have three of our fabulous faculty who are going to be showing and speaking of what techniques and strategies that they utilize in their classes. And please keep in mind that this is an open forum. All faculty are invited to be able to share and discuss and pose questions. And also, too, demonstrations will be made for any questions that anyone may have regarding how to be able to engage students online and utilizing various technologies to be able to increase the attention in online classes. So, no further ado. I would like to go ahead and take the time. First, my name is Dr. Jennifer Miles, a director for our Center for Academic Innovation and Transformation. And I would like to introduce our panelists, or those that are going to serve in sharing information for this session. So with no further ado, first I would like to introduce Dr. Robert Siressa. He is a faculty, have been teaching for over 10 years here at Houston Tillotson University. He teaches in our behavioral science programs, specifically in political science. And Dr. Siressa, he has been teaching online for a number of years, and I am very excited for him to be able to highlight and to show some of the techniques, specifically with the technologies that he has been using for his online classes. In addition, we have Dr. Carlos Cervantes. Dr. Cervantes, who is the department chair for the kinesiology program, one of the top ranking programs here at Houston Tillotson University. And Dr. Cervantes, he rings when it comes into various accolades and awards, including a recent award with the faculty. And Dr. Cervantes, please correct me. It is the faculty network, correct? Is that the faculty resource network that is based out of New York City? But Dr. Cervantes received an incredible award as a top faculty for 2020. In addition, he has served in visiting various countries, including visiting Puerto Rico and doing research into programs specifically with kinesiology, but also his latest program he embarking on is regarding autism and kinesiology. So very excited to be having Dr. Cervantes. I personally know how hard that he has worked into incorporating an array of different third-party software programs, many are free, that you can be able to utilize in your online classes. And then last but not least, we have Dr. Abina Primo. Dr. Primo, she is a professor in our computer science program. And Dr. Primo, including being an advisor for the student program with computer science, Dr. Primo has done a world of ways of engaging students with technology. So we're very excited to have all three of our panelists, and again, all faculty who are on board with us today. They will have the opportunity to ask questions. If you yourself have a fantastic way to engage students online using Canvas or any type of technology, we want you to take this time to share with your peers. So the first question I would like to ask, and this is for our three panelists, Dr. Siressa, Dr. Cervantes, and Dr. Primo, would like to ask, and if you would like to unmute your microphone, and anyone who has a question, please feel free to use the chat box, or if you would like to then unmute your microphone and to speak as well. I would like to first ask, what hurdle did you come across, the first immediate hurdles that you came across when we had an emergency transition to online learning? What did you notice to be first the hurdles, yourself as a faculty, and number two, your students? So Dr. Cervantes, would you like to go first?
Definitely. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation, and happy to be here and sharing my learning experiences with my colleagues. The first, I wouldn't just say it was one. I think it was a multiple of scenarios. The most immediate one was how to move from the face-to-face to the online environment and making the online environment just as productive as the face-to-face scenario. The understanding that the online environment is not the same as the classroom environment. So that transition was a little bit challenging at the beginning, but at the same time, assuming that our students all are versatile in the technology, they're not. Uh, Many of them struggle with just knowing how to navigate my STU and how to even find where my schedule is located. So a lot of the stuff that was challenging was trying to get the students up to par with what we wanted to do. So I would say, the how to transition from the face to face to making the online environment just as good as the face to face, and making sure that my students knew how to use the technology in that transition. Those were the biggest two challenges that I had to face at the beginning.
Thank you very much. I'm sure many of your peers had the same. Dr. Siressa, what about yourself, sir? What were some of those hurdles, initial hurdles, that you would like to highlight that you yourself experienced as well as your students when we transitioned online?
I guess I would say, like in anytime someone does something that's new, it's getting familiar with the context. So obviously not meeting face to face anymore, and the etiquette that goes with online, the Zoom boxes and the online learning, and what you look like and how others appear to you, and the buttons to press to be able to talk, and just to give students surety that we were going to figure this out together, and that we were going to do this as a team, as a group. It wasn't going to go easy, but that was okay. So really just making sure that I was sending messages that we were going to work this out. So it's helping students feel confident with the difficulty of just the adjustment. In you know in my classroom, this may be heresy to say, but um, political science has been taught since the beginning of time, and so we're talking um, uh, a lecture format, discussion format, where we're wrestling with ideas, um, interesting, compelling ideas that mankind has been talking about since the beginning of time. So whatever format that happens everywhere, all the time, at the kitchen table, with our friends, out in the world in various ways. So uh, the the movement to the technology, the online learning, had to be mastered, but it was just another forum for interesting conversations that are the stuff of my discipline.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Primo, what about yourself? What were those hurdles that you personally experienced yourself and as well as your students? What did you observe when we transitioned to online?
For myself, well, good morning, everyone. For myself, some of the things that I observed was that, firstly, I had to reduce some of my assignments because I knew that my students would, well, I wasn't sure how well they would be able to communicate with me over the internet. So I redid a lot of my assignments. Um, Parts that I thought would require them to ask me, or or would confuse them to the point where they couldn't really follow along with only an online type of instruction. I tried to rework it. I made my assignments more wordy, like I described them with a lot more detail than I would if it was like offline. Um, Office hours as well, like getting students to show up for office hours. You know, when you're on campus and you see your students walking by, they might stop you, you know, at the gate. They might stop you um, on your way to the bathroom or something, right, to tell you about their problems and so forth. And you could talk to them and, you know, deal with any issues that they may have. But with the online environment, it's um, not so easy to get access to the professor, right? Even though their office hours and so forth, right? It may feel like a little bit more work on the part of a student to actually maybe pick up a phone or make an appointment in order to have like a face-to-face conversation. So this was a challenge, right? On the part of my students, I know that a lot of them during this particular well, this experience here from the beginning of the pandemic was my first experience teaching a fully online course. And I know that a lot of students were working outside of class. So making adjustments to my courses in order to accommodate that was also important, along with, I'm a computer science professor, so making sure that the students had the right type of software and the right versions of software in order for them to be able to follow what it was that I was doing in class, with us and how we teach most of our computer science courses is that we would put the software, we install the software ourselves or get IT to install it in a lab. So when students come to class, right, we know that every computer has the same software and, it's easy to follow. But with the online medium, I had to, put out instruction manuals and so forth on how to install software, right, on computers and like different types of computers even. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Primo, Siressa, and also Dr. Cervantes. So if you notice, everyone who is joining us, again, a very big welcome. There are some that just joined us. And again, for today, this is a forum for faculty. This is a time for everyone to be able to share with one another about what were those tips and tricks that you learned through experience, through trial and error, or already learned experience from teaching already online that you found to be successful. And those times that it was not as successful, please share that as well. In the chat box, each question that is posed to our panelists, they will be addressing, but as well, please feel free to also unmute your microphone and to share as well. Or again, be able to key in your, type in your input. I am going to pause and I'm going to ask if there is any other faculty that wish to share as well. Those initial hurdles that you experienced online.
I'd like to kind of bifurcate the pros and the cons. I put in the chat that there were some technological issues that I had that were easily overcome, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but I teach film classes, and so figuring out a way to actually have students see whole movies in a class online actually turned out to be an easier, more convenient and more buy-in when we went to Canvas than it was when I had screened in a classroom and I had to have students budget 2 hours or 90 minutes of time to watch there. But what I want to focus on here, because I'm curious if other people found it. Actually, the biggest obstacle I found was a cultural one, simply because so many, these kids are at home. And, I got a tip before we went in this from a friend who had taught a lot of online at Texas State, and he sent out an email to all his friends and colleagues there, and he warned us. He said, put it in your syllabus about what's acceptable when you turn your camera on, when the students come on. It's like, what's acceptable behavior. And he warned us. He said, you'll see kids that are like in bed watching and it happened. I had one kid who was like no shirt on and he was in bed, and we had to say like, hey, and I actually did put it in the text, but I found that, had to talk about that. I had kids that were like walking to the door to get pizzas delivered during class. I had kids that had the phone in their car, and I had to tell them, I don't want you watching, you have to treat this as if it's a classroom experience. And if you can't sit down and make time, you're absent, because if kids wanted to treat it. I had kids walking around the house cooking breakfast and they'd have their phone there on the side. It's like, that's not, but the strangest one, and this is the one that's curious to me, was that the helicopter parent experience came in, where I had two instances, two different classes, where I'd have a student sitting there asking me questions, and I could see that their parent was sitting off camera, and they would be turning it back and forth, and you could hear the questions coming and dictating it, which is a strange experience I never had in a classroom, of somebody bringing their parent to class every day. But here it was kind of like the reverse was, I was invading their space, it seemed, but they felt like there was like no boundaries. And that was the problem I had, was like setting behavioral, because, we talk about this, we talking about a QEP about behavior and professionalism. That was setting a floor for that was a challenge initially for me. And I'm curious if other people had similar experiences.
Thank you, Dr. Vela. That was wonderful. Any other faculty?
Yes, this is Rosalie. How's everybody?
Mm-hmm. Hi there, Dr. Martin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, so
did you want to add on to that?
Yes, my initial challenge was, I didn't know much because I never taught online before. And so my initial challenge was to learn about the process and how to do it, so I could still be the best teacher possible. And the initial challenge was that we did, I had my first class on Canvas conference, and that didn't work because students couldn't see each other. They saw me, but not each other. And that's when I asked for a Zoom account. And then once I got the Zoom account, I knew nothing about how to set up classes and all that stuff. So for me, it was a learning curve. How do I do my best work online? Then I think I did well, but it required a lot of work on my part.
Thank you so much. There's Dr. Quinlan, please. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to sort of talk about, piggyback on Dr. Vela. I guess film and music and all that stuff, kind of we can lump it together. But I also kind of want to explain what happened with me and singing and defend. Why do I say defend? I'll tell you about that later. Well, none of the platforms really work for singing. First of all, in choir, I'll start with choir. We're used to meeting in JM200 and singing together. There is no way you can sing together either on Zoom or FaceTime, none of that. Because of the lag, we just can't sing together. So we have to sing like if I had to assign pieces of music as I would if we were face to face. However, I found that we couldn't get through as much repertoire because every student, I would have to call on them to sing their part individually. So if you were a soprano, you had to sing your part by yourself. All of the sopranos couldn't sing together. And so I had to go around the Zoom room so that everybody could sing their part. Then I would get to the altos, then the tenors, then the basses. So, that's very time consuming. I also found that in teaching voice, I'm used to accompanying my students when they sing their vocal exercises for warm-ups. And then when we start working on repertoire and they start to sing a song, I would accompany them playing the piano accompaniment. Well, there was no way. I started trying to play the accompaniment when we first started in March, and they would say, no, Dr. Williams, you're behind, you're behind me. So none of that worked. So I had to go on YouTube and find accompaniments that they could use to sing when they called in for the next lesson. And I just had to sit there and listen and critique. Getting down to an actual performance, we're used to doing a huge Christmas concert every December, the first Sunday in December before final exam week starts. We do huge works. We do the Messiah with orchestra. We do the Vivaldi Gloria with orchestra. We've done works with brass choir. Well, this Christmas concert, I barely managed to get 2 songs from the choir and then the jazz combo. And of course, some people are going, y'all only did 3 songs? Well, let me tell you what happened. I had planned to do 3 songs with the choir and then the jazz combo do 1. What happens is, in order to just come up with 1 performance, I don't know if any of you have seen any of the virtual choir performances. Have you, any of you? Anyway, the students will, the students would have to video record themselves singing their part. Now, generally for the Christmas concert, we're all in formal wear. So I had to run over to the school, find black, long, formal dresses for the new girls, mail them out to the students, mail out their pearls for them to wear around their necks, then try to tell them, please find a white wall, video record yourself singing your part of all 3 of the songs. Once all of the videos are made, all of the sopranos have to make one, all of the altos have to make one, all of the tenors, all of the basses, an individual part. Then all of those videos come to me. Then those videos then would have to go to an engineer, and then the editing starts. The editing could take anywhere from 4 to 5 to 6 days. Some, if you've seen some of these huge virtual choir performances, they take months. And so if you saw the Christmas concert and you go, what? They just did 3 songs. It took a lot of time and a lot of work just to do those 3 songs. So forgive us. We hope that when we're back face to face, you will see us as you have before in our regalia, and we'll do a huge 1 hour to 1 hour and a half long concert, but that was the best we could do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Quinlan. And before we move to our next question, I do have Dr. Murphy. Dr. Murphy, would you like to go ahead and share? Again, the question on the floor is, what was those initial hurdles that you experienced personally as well as professionally?
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi there, Dr. Murphy.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
Happy
yes,
New
Dr.
Year
Murphy.
to you.
No one said Happy New Year back. I'm trying to activate the camera, but I'm having a little problem here. But anyway, can I say some positive things?
Sure.
Everything.
Okay,
Everything is on the
here.
floor. Yes. So, yes. And we can now see you as well. Thank you so much. Yes. Please go ahead.
I can't see you all though. Okay. All right. So I really like it in some ways. Now, I had all of the same problems that many of you all had with students, with the decorum issues, with students in bed, with students driving and multitasking. So they're able to multitask, so they will. Some of them are at their jobs, and they take a break from their jobs and go in and out of the screen and that sort of thing. Some of them were at their internships. They shouldn't have done that. I told them they couldn't do that. I mean, I have I insist that they are live on screen, and some of them did not do that. And I had one incident where I have guest speakers in classes, and I'm so sorry that I can't see myself. Something's wrong. But anyway, I had a guest speaker, and he was disappointed that there were some students who were not live, because he said, he took out the time for, giving us his presentation free of charge, and he wanted to be able to interact with the students, and he couldn't do it because some of them were not live, although I do require it, and some of them just still don't do it. But what I like about it is I think in some ways it helped me become a better teacher, because I could play back the recordings and see what I thought I did right and what I thought I did wrong when I did have lectures or PowerPoint presentations. And in some ways, I think it can be a more intimate experience with the students. So that's some of the negative and some of the positive from it. But I think the main negative is the fact that the students can multitask with it, and they do that. They're doing 3 and 4 and 5 things all at the same time, and they're going in and out, live and not live, and live and not live on camera. So that's kind of a problem.
I would like to jump back in. Thank you. Is it okay, Dr. Miles, if I jump back in?
Oh, certainly, yes. And we'll spend about 1 more minute. I want to be sure that we get all of our questions addressed. And then also, too, our panelists are going to demonstrate some of their techniques or either their courses in sharing, because it's a form of sharing, not just we're verbalizing, but I also want you all to see some of the techniques. So within the next, say, 30 minutes. So please, Dr. Quinlan, proceed. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Murphy and Dr. Vela mentioned this, and I intended to, but I didn't. And that is, and then because I have a question about yesterday about the students multitasking while class is going on, and Dr. McGuire on yesterday was saying that she didn't think we should require the students to turn their cameras on. Well, I was like Dr. Vela, I decided on my own that I was going to require all students to turn on their cameras. Well, first of all, as performers, you know, I have to see you singing. And so I guess I kept telling them, we are performers. It doesn't matter that we are on Zoom. If we were face to face, you would not be driving to Walmart while you were in class. If we were face to face, we would be singing from the time class starts until the time class ends. And so I just required, and I think it made the students, I think they were able to be more engaged in class, because I required that everybody had to turn on their camera, because everybody would have to sing for me that day. And I would always say, this is a performance, as if we had an audience in the chapel and we were singing. People want to see you look your best, so that the way you're dressed does not detract from the way you sound. So I was wondering how everybody felt when Dr. McGuire said that she didn't think we should require the students to turn on their cameras. Would anybody like to? Okay, Dr. Vela.
I'm going to take a stab at that. I mean, I think her objection, and I understand it, was technological. And we saw it yesterday, because I mean, it was raining yesterday. We were having connectivity issues. The audio kept going in and out for me, and it probably was for a lot of you as well. But I think her point was simply that when everybody's got their video on, it requires more bandwidth, and that makes that problem worse. Now, I agree with you. We're at HT, we don't have, and she's at LSU, she probably has classes, and I've taught at Texas State where I had classes of 275 people. You can't, you know, that's going to be a real burden on a infrastructure at IT, but our classes are really small. So I tend to agree with you. Like, I had the same issue because I taught a speech class, and I had kids that they wanted to speak, and I told them they had to turn their cameras on, and they didn't understand it. And I said, I'm assessing you on eye contact. I'm assessing you on comportment, on your posture. You know, I have a rubric, and I need to see you. And so at that point, they kind of understood. I had to put the rubric on screen and walk them through it. I said, this is how we would do it if we were in the classroom, and we can't change. I'm teaching you to address people in public. You
Right.
have to do this, you know? And
Yeah.
so I guess, you know, but you really have to explain it to them. But I'm with you on this one, is that we're such a small institution. Now, I don't know about other instructors. Some of you may have classes with 30 or 40 people, and that might be an issue, but mine tend to be around 8 to 14 or so. So I agree with you. I'd like to see them, because I don't know who else mentioned it, but it was an excellent point. I think it was Dr. Martin. When they can see each other, that really changes the dynamic of the classroom.
Exactly. Thank you.
Let me add as well to the question, Dr. Quinlan. And I'm on both sides of the balance, and I'm gonna share experiences that I have had and why in my classes only require them to have the camera in certain occasions, like when we have a guest, because I want to make sure that, like you were saying, you have a guest coming in, like Dr. Martin said, you have a guest coming in. I want to make sure that the guests know, why we're taking the time to for you to see us. But it's because of where our students are actually taking the classes. So when we're in the classroom is a very structured environment. When you're in your singing your room, it's very structured. You're there, you know what you need to do.
Right.
For many of our students, they don't have that room. For example, right now, you see that my camera goes off and on because, for example, right behind me, my little one is taking his classes. So our office space in the house has become a classroom space to some extent. For many of my students, they don't have that. I had a student who was in the kitchen while she was taking a class, because that's the only space at the home where the family would give them that free time, but she would have people coming in and out. But also the context that they're in. I have a student who, is very low income family. She doesn't have a lot of resources, and she was very upfront with me at the beginning. Dr. Svandes, I'm gonna keep my camera, but not because I don't want you to see my face, but I don't want my peers to see my environment. What do I have to deal with on an everyday basis? So there's the technological issue of the bandwidth when everybody has the cameras on if you have a large class, but also it comes down to the comfort level of the students sharing their personal space. They're at the home, and that is their personal space. So there's always going to be that challenge between the student, the class, and the home environment. I remember I was teaching a class one day, and my father-in-law, it's been living with us since all this pandemic started, because he's a very elderly. He was in Puerto Rico, so we brought him here to be closer to the family, not be by himself. And one day I'm teaching a class, and he's walking with a shirt right behind me. So I had to tell my wife, like, you cannot let your dad, just do that like that, because I'm teaching the class. So there's so many unpredictable things that could happen. And I think that for many of our students, it's how comfortable are they to share their personal space with the entire class within their own environment. So that's why sometimes I think that, in my syllabus, I do have a statement about, sharing your camera, but also if you cannot, just to let me know up front, so I understand the reasoning behind. But I do not also require them to have the camera when we're meeting, and I have found that their engagement is still the same even when I don't see their faces. I have a student who struggled for 2 semesters at HD, and she's still on academic profession issues because of bad semesters, but the last 2 semesters, she has been outstanding. And one of the things that she was talking about was that in the environment that I'm in, I feel that I can be my own and share myself and have the flexibility to work as you expect me to do so. Where many times before she didn't feel that way. So that transition for her was really good. It worked really well because she enabled her to balance a lot of the responsibilities that she has. But I think that to some extent, what the person was talking about yesterday had to do a little bit also about the personal space of the students without having to really say they're in their personal space. And now they have to open up to you through a camera. So there's the technology and the personal space as well. But every class would also lend itself very differently. For example, in a class like mine, like the freshman seminar, will learn very differently than your class, where the students have to sing.
Right.
So the context itself would also lend for different types of requirements.
Thank you very much, Dr. Siressa. And everyone, as we do continue, and I don't know who that person was. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm going to actually ask that person. Oh, Dr. Holman, okay. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm going to go ahead and get to you, but I am going to ask, since we have this robust conversation going, to help facilitate, please, whenever there is someone that would like to speak, feel free to jump in, just like Dr. Holman was, or feel free to use the hand raise icon that is in the options here in Zoom, lower at the bottom of your screen or the top. You should see where you can be able to raise your hand, and then I'm monitoring that. And as we continue on to our third question, before we move on, I just want to ask faculty to please go ahead and drop in that chat box if there was any website or any training, anything that you use to increase your knowledge about teaching online strategies and those tips, any websites or any resources, just drop that into the chat box so that your peers can go ahead and use those features as well. So as we continue on with the discussion about the requirement of using or not using the video camera yourself or either requiring of your students, please, we're going to go ahead and continue before we move on to our third question. So Dr. Holman, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think, and this may lead, is a good segue to your discussion that you want to have about tips and tricks, but I think first of all, when you're talking about the personal and professional struggles, I think the biggest one that I had from March to today is fatigue. It's really tiring to teach online. So I usually teach 3 classes in a day, and I can do that standing up, walking around, moving around, changing classrooms. But to do 3 Zoom classes exhausts me. My eyes hurt, my head hurts. Like it tires me out. And even just to listen to things for Zoom for multiple hours is exhausting to me too. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I'm tired by the end of the day.
Yes.
And I wasn't even that tired moving around physically in a classroom, but sitting there watching is a lot. And so for me, sometimes I'll even turn my camera off just so I can close my eyes, or just not have to stare at the screen. So for me, I want to give students that freedom too. And I think about the fact, okay, what's the point of wanting their cameras on? Like, why do I want that? And the real point, I think, to Dr. Cervantes' point is engagement. I want them to engage with me. I don't want to just sit here and talk to no one. And so for me, I'm like, if you can type in the chat, if you can unmute and talk, even if I can't see your face, that helps me at least a little bit. I don't want you, because what's lost in the transition from face-to-face to online is that whole kind of osmosis learning, where students would just come into the classroom and sit and wouldn't say anything, they wouldn't engage, but at least your words are somewhere in the ether in the classroom somehow or another and maybe sinking in. We don't know that when they're muted and video off. We don't know if they're even listening, if they've just put the phone down, walked away. So for me, I'm like, if you're engaging to some degree, even if your video is off, that's the part that I really want them to do. So I'm constantly saying, put in the chat this, or say this, or I'll tell, I'll call somebody's name out, and say like, Beth Ann, what do you think about this? Type it down if you don't want to speak, so those kind of things I'll try to do just to improve engagement, even if it's not video, I can see your face, whatnot. But again, I teach a certain type of class. So it's not like Dr. Quinlan's class where I need to see them doing a thing, Right. So I just wanted to offer that as well. Chats, polling, all that kind of stuff to get actual engagement going on.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Very, very good point, Dr. Holman. Of course, discipline definitely does play a role.
Can I chip in here?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Oh, yes, jump on in, and we're going to go ahead and then proceed. We still got about 20 minutes, and we're going to proceed on to our last 2 questions. So, Dr. O, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good morning, all.
Good morning.
I think on the issue of camera, it depends on a number of things. One, what kind of technology the student is using and what kind of bandwidth they have. My experience is that, especially in my introductory class, many of my students use cell phone to engage the class. I don't know why. Despite the fact that the university made available computers to students. I could tell because I voluntarily asked them to turn on their camera so that I can at least know who they are, given that they are new students. I don't know most of them. That voluntary request is met by just 1 or 2, and the rest just keep mute. Also, it depends on the type of bandwidth they have on their end, given that we all are operating from different locations and from our different houses. It depends on what kind of subscriptions they have with their ISP providers. That's one. Another thing is that there's this assumption that everyone is using Microsoft compatible computers, but that's not so. I have some of my students that have using Mac computers. And the funny thing is that the university provides Office 365 for students who are using Microsoft compatible computers for free. But that same, if I may say, extension to students using Microsoft compatible computers are not extended to those who are using Mac computers. They would be forced to go and buy the version, the Microsoft version for Mac computers. So there needs to be some kind of standardization in terms of what is provided to students, given the fact that there are some students who bought Mac computers on their own, and the university offered Microsoft compatible computers, but then the softwares are not compatible on those two computers. So it's something that we also have to take a look at. The last but not the least is students who engage my classes using just audio mode lack the flexibility and the opportunity to engage in video presentations, because they might hear what I'm saying, but they won't see my demonstration. And that makes learning very difficult for them, especially if the content matter requires some kind of practical demonstration. So those are the type of problems I get. However, I was able to mitigate that by recording my classes and posting the link in Canvas so that they can go back and take a look at the video to see what was demonstrated and see the rationales and the different variables that were considered in either design, so on and so forth. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. No, thank you, Dr. Ovaletsky. So thank you very much, and everyone. Wow, this chat box is just really on fire. So thank you for everyone pouring in your comments and your experience. I'm hearing, seeing the comments about, yes, teaching online can be draining. Many people, I think, take for granted, even maybe administration, take for granted about faculty teaching online. It does take a lot of effort, especially how much time into preparing the content for online instruction, as opposed to just simply going into a classroom. So teaching online, it does take time and effort and energy. And also, too, thank you, Dr. Messino, because she had brought up a very good point regarding it does not matter whether or not regarding the camera, the policy, it's just making sure that you discuss with your students the reasoning, because that helps in terms of their processing and as well their motivation and understanding why. So the question on the floor was any policies that you took to accommodate for online. So feel free to again jump in the chat box, addressing that question. What steps did you take, if any, did you transition your traditional course policies to accommodate online? Do keep in mind that that syllabi is that binding contract for courses for students, and you want to make sure, like if you require your students to have a camera, that is included in the course policy, or if you require students to have certain type of resources or technologies for the class, that is in your syllabus. So that is important. So feel free to add that into the chat box at any time. I'm going to now go ahead and focus now on our fourth question while we have a little less than 15 minutes. The fourth question on the floor, as you see here in the chat box, and I'm going to first start out with Dr. Primo with this. What are your views regarding student interaction and group activities? How did you go about with eliciting student interaction, dialogue to accommodate virtual and a virtual platform? Dr. Messino, she actually asked us way early on. She actually specifically posed this to Dr. Siressa. And Dr. Siressa, she had asked about how did you go about with your public leadership course? How did you get students to dialogue virtually? So, but this is for everyone, but I am going to start out with Dr. Primo, then Dr. Siressa, then Dr. Cervantes. So for everyone, what are your views, or what was your policy regarding student interaction and or group activities? How did you elicit students to interact or dialogue online? Dr. McGuire, yesterday during Faculty Institute, she touched on this a bit about how to get students to interact online and to feel like it is a family environment so that they feel more comfortable to go ahead and to interact. And then there was also a discussion question about using the Canvas feature discussion or discussion boards. Some students find it draining, or either, they can feel that it's mundane to answer questions weekly and the discussion board. So how did you go about with getting students to interact online? Dr. Primo.
Okay, so first off, with respect to student interactions, in my class, I usually ask questions like after I finish like a section, like like a short introduction and a topic or so. I'd ask questions, right? And I see like in the chat box, I use Canvas for my lectures, and in the chat box, the students will talk to each other there and address questions, you know, ask their question of me before I'm done explaining. So I go and I read their questions there, and then I ask them, oh, do you understand what it is that I just explained? And then I read some more because sometimes some students, well, of course, some students will come on the mic and speak, but at the same time, there are going to be other students who are not able to come on the mic and speak, right? So they'll mostly write in the chat. So I also use the discussion forum, but it's mostly for students to interact with each other, not to interact with me, because I told them to just email me their questions directly, right? And these are, and I was trying not to avoid talking in programming terms or computer science type topics, but I would have them send me what it is that they were trying to do, like their solution, and I would ask them what it is that they're trying to accomplish, and then I would make corrections, you know, or suggest corrections via email, and then I would send it back to them. And that's how I interacted with the students. I also gave them like a Google Voice telephone number that they could call me to ask me questions, right? This is of course outside of class. And with respect to the group activities, in order to get students to interact in groups, what I did is that part of the grade so on group assignments, you get a group grade, like 80% of your grade is based off of the work your group accomplished. And then the next 20% is based off of how your peers in your group judged you. Right, so my students actually, they wrote reports on each of their group members, right? And scored them, and then based off of that, they got graded. And some of the things I asked them to grade their group members were how motivational they were in the group. Did you learn anything from this particular group member, right? Did this group member show up on time to meetings? And, you know, I had like 5 questions that they had to answer about the group member and give them a score with respect to that. Right? They were pretty brutal on some of their members. It wasn't all, oh, 5, 5, 5. You'd be surprised because remember, this is like a personal score that they would submit when they submitted their group assignment to me on Canvas. So I was able to see and use it all as a grade. It was anonymous, so they felt free to critique their group members, right? And at the end, you know, I would tell like their group members, if of course the group was larger than 2, what it is that their shortcomings were in the group. Yeah, that's all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Primo. Dr. Siressa, what were your thoughts? How did you go about to elicit your students to interact online virtually? Did you have group projects, or did you have students to use different type of video conferencing to work with one another? So what is your thoughts? What was your techniques?
Well, I was able this past semester to incorporate activities outside of class so that my students had a chance to work with community groups and organizations around issues that they cared about. And then we were able to bring that into the classroom as well. So that was a really exciting thing. And the online actually made those kinds of connections with outside groups a little bit easier. And so that was an important part of the semester, the students having a chance to work with organizations who are doing relevant content area stuff and then come back and share it. That was a big deal. Then Also, I make it clear to my students that I'm going to be asking them questions and I'm going to be expecting them to reply, and that if they're not able to reply, then I'm going to remove them from the classroom. And we have the capacity to remove students from using Zoom. You can kick people out of the room, and I'm respectful about it, but I tell them that if I call on them and they're not able to reply, then that means they're not there, and then I'm going to remove them. And the class is recorded anyway, so if they are removed, they can see what they missed by looking at the video. I don't require them to be on the camera, but with the camera on, but I let them know that they're going to be, they are accountable for answering a question as best they can. They don't have to be right, but they got to be there to reply. And so um, I guess maybe those two things were really important, things that happens in the spring and the fall.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Siressa. Last but not least, Dr. Cervantes, your views, your thoughts regarding online student interaction or group activities, or how did you get students to dialogue online?
I think that one of the first things that I really reflect upon a lot was, at least for my classes when we made the transition, was the student to student and teachers to student interactions. So I really spent a lot of time finding ways on how I was going to make it work. I have used some of the stuff that both Dr. Primo and Dr. Siressa have shared. For example, my class always starts with a question, and I ask the students to put a comment in the chat tool when we are, I use Zoom primarily. So they add the question, but then they can earn points by responding to each other's comment. So many times a student asks, "Oh, can I get extra credit? Is there extra credit?" I always tell them that the extra credit is earned by their participation in class. So depending on the value of the comment, depending on the quality of the question, they can earn points, and then they can exchange those points for either adding it to the total at the end of the course, or if they miss an assignment, they can then use those points for replacing a previously existing assignment. And that has really worked really well, at least for my freshman class. They have really engaged a lot just because they know I have the opportunity to earn points because I missed last week's discussion. I also use the discussion forum, but I don't just use the discussion forum for the students to actually add or respond, but actually they have a due date for their initial comment, and then they have a due date for their how can I say, their response to a peer. They can respond to 1 to 2 peers. So they can only get the points when they have really responded to somebody else. So if you just went last minute and you forgot that you had the assignment and you went in and you just put your initial vote, you don't get the points. The points are only earned when you have responded to somebody else, that you have taken the time to read somebody else's comments and responded to that. And that has worked super well. If I have the opportunity to share some of the things of the length in which the students actually go to not only commenting, but also responding to one another. And that has really helped because and I think that it's very important that if you're using the forums, that you actually go back and you respond to your students. I think that many times you get the students to comment to one another, but you don't really kind of like close the loop because, so I usually go in and respond, and then I share and pick on some of the comments that they have shared to kind of like give credit to the discussion that they were engaging. And the last thing is that my assignments switch to just being assignments to actually being applied. Meaning, whenever we discuss something, the assignment is applicable to what we discussed. And that adds another extra layer of engaging them with the class. I think that the one thing that I also facilitated was to let the students know that we're not experts. I'm a facilitator. I'm not an expert, and we all are gonna go through our own individual challenges. So it's okay to now feel comfortable knowing how to do something. And I think that really made them feel at a level that they can really relate to one another. And that's why I think that there was a lot of success on the stuff that I did. I do have high levels of engagement from my students. And I mean, if you jump into any of my classes, you're gonna see it. There's a lot of engagement. But because I set that tone early on, and at least for the freshman group, it was my biggest concern. It has worked really well. There have been some challenges for some students. We do have students who live abroad. They don't live in the United States. And I did have one student who he lives in Mexico, and he did struggle a little bit, not only in terms of the language barrier, because he's not really proficient in English yet, but technology-wise. So there were instances in which even after every attempt, some of the what I wanted to achieve was not achievable for some students, but not because they didn't want it to, but because there were other factors that we just couldn't control.
Gotcha. All right. Very good point. Very, very good point made, Dr. Siressa. Dr. Cervantes. I do see here in the chat box, Dr. Kamlavan, he had a specific question for Dr. Primo, as Dr. Primo addressed how to, get students to interact and dialogue online. So I'm going to have Dr. Kamlavan and then Dr. Quinlan, and then to round us out, Dr. Vela, and then everyone else, as you do, go ahead and take a look at that chat box. We have our last and final question here. We're really narrowing the last bit of time. We have about 2 minutes. We can go a little over for those that can stay over. For those that have to leave by 11, no worries. We appreciate everyone being on with us. So the final and last question I would like for everyone to kind of keep in mind and think about is, what were the specific features in Canvas or any outsourced technologies that you incorporated into your online courses that helped students be successful? Okay, so be thinking about that and feel free to drop that into the chat box. So Dr. Kamlavan, if you would, and then Dr. Quinlan.
Yes.
Dr. Kamlavan, do I have you? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Primo, I'm going to be teaching a course in the spring called Data Science, which my students need to use, do some coding in Python.
Mm-hmm.
And is there any way that I can see their, the question may be this, while they're on Zoom or Canvas, can they go, for instance, to some editor like Jupyter and do their coding there? Is that possible for them? Or I don't know if you have run into a problem like that or not.
So when I'm teaching programming classes, what I do is that, at the beginning of the course, right, you get the students to install the compilers.
Right.
So like Jupyter Notebook and so forth, you have them install
Right.
a particular version, the same version that you have on their machines.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that's very key, right?
Right.
And get them to install the same version that you have on their machines. Now, once you have that, right?
Yeah.
When you're going through in class, you can do a demo and they can follow along, and then you can post the code afterwards on Canvas. But you were asking if you can see what it is that they're doing.
For instance,
in Canvas, you can have them demo like with the share screen.
Okay.
Right? You can have them demo what it is they've coded, right? You can do it on any of the tools. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. Well, then I have to make multiple if I want to see everybody's code at the same time, right?
Yeah, you'd have to go one by one. I usually do like a day if I'm going to I don't know how proficient you are at the programming tool, but like for very short assignments, like no more than 50 lines or so,
right.
I usually grade those by myself off camera. But for larger assignments, that like the group projects and projects that it depends on where you are and how comfortable you are with grading, right? But you can either do like one class session, put aside one class session just for them to go over and demo your code.
Yes, my main concern was, for instance, when they write code, they, usually they miss a comma or a semicolon or something. And I want to look at them because that's what I do when I teach the course in the lab. So I see what is the syntax error they have. So I want to be able to jump there and say, hey, do this, then the program run. And I'm not worried about grading because in these courses, you can interactively see the result if the program is working or not. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a good way of actually getting like for small errors. I do try to incentivize students to code correctly by saying that for the programming assignments, you have to make your code at least run without errors in order to get a D, right?
See, the problem I have, well, it's not the problem, but the deal is, this is not really as much as a coding course than it is to running big data and analyzing big data. You see what I'm saying?
I know, right? But you're gonna have to say that, right? You're gonna have to have a minimum standard. Like on your coding assignments, you have to have them. They have to at least be able to run their programs without errors, right? In order to get at least a D. That'll help. Like if they have problems before the assignment is due, that'll force them to come to see you for office hours.
Right. Okay.
Right? Because they have to fix it.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. All right.
Okay, awesome. Well, this is what this forum is for sharing and sharing techniques and features with one another. So this is great. It is about 3 minutes over time. We've already lost one of our panelists. I know Dr. Siressa had another event he had to get to, and there's departmental meetings, and of course, faculty need time to go ahead and prepare their curriculum for next week. So I don't want to fret anyone else that have to drop off. Again, thank you for joining. We had such a tremendous, reception to this event. I think that we'll try to incorporate this a couple of times out of the month. How do you all think about that? Think that could work? I'll go ahead and I will post the first event. Hopefully, we'll get people to go ahead and faculty to register, and we can do this more because you're learning from your peers. So this is great. Again, addressing the question, thank you, Dr. Murphy. She has shared some of those those features and techniques. Dr. Siressa, he is the king of it. I was really hoping that we would have had time for him to share his screen and to, highlight some of those technologies that he has used for his online classes. Also, natural science, Dr. Mercino and those faculty, Dr. Tan and others, they have utilized a lot of different features that students really love. Dr. Mercino reported out in the survey that those simulations, those online technologies that they use in their courses, their labs, it was really impactful to student engagement. And so that is great. So I think Dr. Quinlan had a final thought. After Dr. Quinlan, anyone else that would like to speak, and then we'll go ahead and conclude no later than 11:10. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be really, really quick. I had to learn from the very beginning, and so maybe this can help everybody else, that yes, the course requirements really did change. And I had to go back and put those in because I just took things for granted. When students show up for choir, I've already ordered the music. I just pass out the music and we sing. But then I had to go and think about, oh no, they're gonna have to be making videos and blah, blah, blah. So the course requirements, I had to put in there that everybody needed to have a computer, a laptop, or an iPad. They had to have headphones because when they make those computers, they also had to have a metronome because normally they're gonna be singing to a click track so that everybody can stay on the same. So the requirements were just totally different. They needed headphones. They needed a digital recording device. They needed a USB keyboard. I mean, it was unbelievable at all of the things that they needed. So I was just gonna say, make sure you think about everything your class will need that's different from when we're face to face. And in terms of group sharing, that was easy for me. I put all of the sopranos in a breakout room so they could work on their part whenever I found that students didn't know the music well. And I put all the tenors in one and so forth and so on. So basically that's it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Quinlan. That was great. Very, very good point. And I love how you accommodated, especially that's so tough for you because your students are actually singing online. So,
Right.
wow, I can only imagine. So, thank you. Dr. Vela, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I can be quick about this. Can you let me screen share as well? Can I do that? Share screen?
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to
You
show you
should be
something
able
that I
to at
did
any time. Mm-hmm.
that helped a student, because I have to, like Dr. Quinlan, students have to critique each other. But I also have a question for, since everybody, there's still a lot of people here, because I had one bottleneck, one hurdle that I could not overcome in Canvas. And if you figured it out, let me know. So I was just saying at the beginning, I teach a film class, and my workaround, I'm going to actually show you my my Google Drive, is that I have a massive library. Don't ask me how I got it, because I'm not going to tell you. But okay, so I have, you know, all the films that I taught in my class, and you can see a lot of them are kind of sitting here. So if I can highlight one, so here's Moonlight, that I taught in a Afro-Am cinema class last semester. And the way that I was able to do, and this works in critiquing as well, is I would upload these onto my Google Drive. And then if I can move this over here, move all you over there, then I could screen share. And when I would share it, you could see all of my students, where's the little box, the little dialog box, all of the students, I got their emails in class 1 and shared it with them. So this was like Netflix. They were able then to go in and watch these on their time off my screen. We didn't have to send these massive files all the way around. And that worked very well. And especially, I'm going to go back to my screen. I'll scroll down. You can see there's student projects down here. In the beginning, we did photography. So it was very easy for them. I said, everybody has a Google Drive. If they uploaded their photographs on it and then shared it with everybody else, so students could watch each other, and we didn't have to send all these massive files all over the place. And then they could critique each other. That was something they had to do before they came to class. So they already had criticisms written and they could share each other. So that built some interaction. Now here's the bottleneck. Here's the technological hurdle, because I know we're running late. I've got like a minute left. When we got to the video section, and anytime I played a clip off of this in Canvas, they were all complaining that they couldn't hear the audio. Now, there is a function in Canvas that lets you find something on YouTube and it'll play the audio perfectly. But if it was off my Google Drive, or the students were sharing it off their Google Drives, the audio wouldn't play. And has anybody figured that out? You really help my world if you could tell me how to do that.
Excellent.
No?
Very good question, Dr. Vela. Yep, very good question. Let me allow me a little time to research this, because I am committed to try to address that. I love a challenge. So allow me to look into this. And as well, this is recorded. So other faculty who are unable to attend at for this 10 a.m. session, they will be privy to hearing and seeing this. And we'll ask that again, that they share to be able to assist you if they have an answer to that. So is there anyone else? Any final remarks from anyone regarding tips and tricks and any other technologies that you would like to share with your peers?
Yes, I have a question. I don't understand the Zoom recordings being saved in the cloud versus the Zoom recordings being saved on the computer. My Zoom recordings seem to just naturally go to a document on my computer. So will they always be there until I?
Well, yep, because they're on your computer. Yeah. So you have maybe went into your settings and you have elected for your recordings to be saved to your computer. Because we are using a pro account or license account, the university's Zoom is a ed package. That's what they call it. It's titled the education package. So when you are recording, you can be able to save to the cloud, or you can be able to save to your local computer, your local drive. And if we do recommend that you save to your local drive, because that way you'll have access to your recordings at any time forever. But if you are recording to the cloud, periodically we will be clearing out, because you can only imagine how much space, say, a 1 hour recording takes. Sometimes it's about 600 megabytes. And if you multiply that by many classes, it really eats away at our cloud server, how much space we have purchased with Zoom. Okay. So I am happy to work with anyone one-on-one. I know Dr. Martin and we knocked it out yesterday. Well, I think Dr. Martin, in 5 minutes or less? So it's very simple, very easy. So just contact me directly if anyone would require any assistance with that. 5 p.m. today is the deadline.
And it's possible to purchase lighting equipment from you?
Lighting equipment, we can talk. We can discuss that. I don't know specifically, and because we're 12 minutes over and I have to get to an interview, I'm sorry. So I'm going to have to skedaddle here in a minute. Just let's talk directly one-on-one, and I can be able to know exactly what lighting that you are interested in. And to everyone who has joined us today, if there are technologies or any resources that you believe that will assist you in teaching online, please contact me directly. I do already know there's some of you all who I see right now that have already submitted those requests to me, and we've already taken care of that. So, and also we're in the process of getting more. So contact me directly. Again, I'm so grateful. Thank you to everyone that joined us today. Okay. Dr. Vela, go ahead.
Before you leave, just a quick question.
You're muted. I think you hit a button.
There you go. Are you available later today? Because I do need to contact you about a Zoom account.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Do you need a Zoom account?
I have a Canvas account. I don't have a Zoom account. We can
yeah,
do this
sure. I can
afternoon.
answer that easy.
Meeting, but yeah,
I can answer that easy. Just anyone who would like a university Zoom account that will allow you to be able to record for hours on end. There's no limit, up to 100 people in a session. Email me. Just email me. Just simply one sentence. Hey, I need a Zoom account, and I'll go to take care of it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Yes. All righty, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Be safe. Bye-bye.